Detective Eric Matthews has tracked down the elusive Jigsaw killer who traps people he deems undeserving of life and puts them in elaborate games from which escape is encouraged, but with a price. Jigsaw has a detective's son trapped in a house full of dangerous and desperate ex-cons, and the clock is ticking in the second installment of the profitable and fan-beloved horror franchise, 2005's Saw 2. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And I'm Caleb Leger.
And this is Filmgazm. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the 136th episode of the Filmgazm podcast, our flagship horror-friendly podcast where we get to play in this freaky sandbox of genre films every week. In honor of Friday's release of the long-awaited ninth Saw film, Spiral, we thought it would be fun to continue our ongoing look into the Saw franchise with the second film. Austin, Josh, and I did the first Saw back in episode 106, which was a redo of the solo episode I did back in episode 9. Still plenty of Saw to go around, which is good because this franchise is a firm favorite of yours.
Yes. For me, as a budding horror fan, this was my chance to see them on the big screen or see something on the big screen. Because I do remember being a teenager around the time this was coming out, and I remember the commercials every single year. If it's Halloween, it must be Saw. And I get excited. I'm a massive fan of this franchise because it is, to me, in my heart, my franchise. It's my horror franchise that I got to experience. And I couldn't be more ecstatic that we're getting this new one and that the person we'll be talking about that's directing it is coming back. It's, not a new director. It's a mainstay of this franchise. So this is a near and dear series to my heart.
That's great. That, passion's always fantastic. I love the Saw films. I discovered them after their tenure in theaters. I did get to see Jigsaw at the theaters. That was good. That was fun. But
I was on my first deployment with Nimitz when that came out.
Oh, so you didn't get to see that one on big screen?
No.
It's an odd franchise. It's cool, and there's something about this franchise that made it like so profitable. It surpassed, other quote unquote torture porn franchises like Hostel. There's something special about Saw that kept people coming back, and all these movies were pretty successful. What do you think it is about Saw that has people like it's got that it factor?
I think a lot of it had to do with the timing. At the time it came out, 2004 was the first movie. And it was hot off the heels of us getting ready to do the remake everything phase in American horror cinema, along with the J-horror craze that was happening thanks to, that 1-2 punch of, I guess 3 punch of Ring, Grudge, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You had that, and right when the first one came out, you were starting to get in this wave of people like Rob Zombie and Eli Roth that were bringing a much more in-your-face approach to mainstream horror. So I think that timing when it came out was just perfect for the type of film people wanted to see. But I think it had the it factor was there was a lot more. I'm not going to say there wasn't a lot more care with. Well, they all care about story, but it seems like there was more emphasis, especially with the first film, where it's a sequel compared to the sequels, on story and who Jigsaw is as a person, not necessarily just the traps. Even though those became a big high point of the series, obviously, as it progressed.
I think there's also something to just every character in these traps is a despicable human being. Like everyone's there because they've done something wrong. They don't appreciate their life. They've hurt somebody. Like they're here for a reason. Jigsaw does not pick innocent people. So I think, it's a little cathartic watching bad people get just ripped apart like this. I think that's a big part of it for me anyway. Like I was always happy to see these bastards get theirs.
That, what I also think it is another point, and I don't know if you ever did this watching them, but a part of you sits there and thinks, could I get out of this trap?
Yeah.
Like, unlike, obviously, like, could I get away from Jason or Michael, right? It's, you watch this when you're thinking, could I get out of this trap? Like, could I do it? Would I be able to push myself that much?
Could I jump into a pit of used needles and find a key in 30 seconds? Could I do that?
Dude, as someone who wears contacts, could I poke myself in the eye, stab my own eyeball to get a key out? Oh,
I a lot of these, I say no, but then again, the whole point of this franchise is the limits of the human instinct to survive. Like if you are in that situation, you don't know how far you're willing to go unless you're there. It's, we've seen that in real life situations. Like I just watched 127 Hours for the first time, and Aaron Ralston trapped in a cave miles away from anybody, his arm pinned. Survival kicks in, and you're going to cut that fucker off. It's human nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's the idea of it's so easy to sit there and go like, nah, I can't do that. But then if you're actually in that situation when adrenaline's pumping through you and it is life or death, maybe you could.
Yeah. Especially like even in the first movie, the big one was Dr. Gordon cutting his own foot off to save his family. Like in that situation, you don't know if your family's alive or dead. You're the only one who could save them. You've got a saw. You've got, limited amount of time. Suddenly, the protection instinct kicks in and you just go to town. It's not crazy. As the franchise progresses, it gets a little crazier, but
Yeah, well, like I said, eventually, like it did get to that point where the traps became a little bit more of the focus. So it was like, all right, well, this is getting a little outlandish, but I'm a sucker for this series. So I was tuning in every time. I love that scene when he cuts his foot off in the first one. The build up to that is so fucking perfect.
Yeah, I think it's the way the first one was lightning in a bottle, and it just created something that's lasted up to now with 9 films, and we do plan to cover all 9 of these films eventually, like one.
Yeah, we'll get and that's just the series. Think about the 2 people behind it. You got James Wan and Lee Winnell. James Wan and Lee Winnell, they both, they did Insidious, started that franchise. James Wan then started the Conjuring franchise, which is now the currently biggest franchise in horror. He's done his dabble with mainstream, air quotes, with the 7th Fast and Furious and Aquaman.
Oh yeah.
And then on Lee Winnell, I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's almost becoming the more exciting director for me because he's gone on to do brilliant work with Upgrade and The Invisible Man that I'm almost on a lookout more for what he's doing than James Wan. Even though James Wan's done a lot of great stuff, but Leigh Whannell's really created his own distinctive voice as a director that I like a lot.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm super psyched to see him take on the Wolfman. Yeah, it's cool. Like this franchise really did jumpstart 2 of the biggest names in horror. And for that alone, like, thanks. Oh, yeah, it's great. And Saw 2 is a great follow-up that, builds on the mythology, gives us more of, shows us who Jigsaw is as a person, his ideology, his motivations. And there's so much setup for the future that you don't realize until you watch it a couple times. You're like, oh yeah, they all went and became, bigger characters in this franchise. And they did that throughout. Like they were always thinking ahead with this franchise. And that's impressive.
Yeah. And this, to me, like, this sequel is one of the rare sequels that is just as good, if not better than the original. I could go with either on that. I think they do such a great job of building from what came before and going bigger with it and still giving us a riveting story. And the best part is this script originally was not a Saw sequel. They turned it into a Saw sequel.
That's awesome. I'm curious, do you have a personal favorite of the 8 we've seen so far, not counting Spiral because that's not out yet?
Yeah, actually, it's probably outside of the original, outside of the classic, right? I would actually say this one. Saw 2 has always been a personal favorite sequel of mine. I think we'll get into it. There's a lot of things I would love about this movie. It's also the directors from the same school I went to, Full Sail.
Oh, right on.
So it's his first foray into the franchise. So
so Saw 2 was greenlit immediately following the success of Saw. with Lionsgate wanting to capitalize hard and fast. The film was built out of a script by Darren Lynn Bousman called The Desperate, which was in search of a producer at the time. He was struggling to get his first movie off the ground. Everyone kept saying it's too much like Saw, which is just fucking hilarious considering what happened. Greg Hoffman, producer of the first 2 Saws before he died, got a hold of it, decided it could be reworked into Saw 2. Bousman was then hired to direct, and he became a staple of the franchise, even returning to direct Spiral.
Which, fun fact, Chris Rock approved it. Chris Rock asked to meet him and get his pitch for Spiral, because you gotta remember, Chris Rock is the biggest reason Spiral is happening.
Yeah.
And apparently, because I found this out on the Movie Crypt, because Aaron Bousman was on the Movie Crypt, and he apparently impressed Chris Rock so much that they called him and said, "Hey, he wants you to direct. He is adamantly wanting you."
That's I love that Chris Rock wanted to. He didn't want to make, he didn't want to reboot Saw. He wanted to make a Saw movie. You really get that vibe that Chris Rock wanted to do this right, and that's just making me even more excited about Spiral.
Yeah, I would have never thought that of all the people in Hollywood, Chris Rock is who is going to be excited for a Saw movie.
I know, yeah, who'd have thought? It's great. Let's talk about the cast. So we got Tobin Bell as John Kramer, the Jigsaw Killer. Bell has played Jigsaw in all 8 films thus far, and I really hope he at least cameos in Spiral. Some of his other films include Mississippi Burning, The Firm, The Quick and the Dead, and he played the voice of Savitar on season 3 of The Flash. And Tobin Bell, for me, is my favorite part of this franchise. Just his voice, his presence, it's perfect. No one else could have played Jigsaw like this.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to how much this franchise means to me. Again, because I didn't get to see on big screen, I gotta see Jigsaw. Jigsaw is, when people are always asking, really, of your horror sleeve, you got Jigsaw. I'm like, I grew up with them. Jigsaw is one of my all-time favorite horror villains, and heroes, whatever you want to consider him. And Tobin Bell is so fucking good throughout this series. He is perfect. Fucking love him every time. The voice, the way he just holds, the way he speaks, everything. It's just perfect. I love it.
I love that even in the later films, they would still in the movie retool the voice on the little tape recorder so it still sounded like Tobin Bell. Even when it's Hoffman setting up the games, but it's still Jigsaw's game. I love they kept that thread going. And I mentioned this in the first episode we did on Saw, but where do you get so many tape recorders in in this day and age? That's not a normal purchase. That's how they could have caught him.
Amazon, bro. Different name.
And little tapes. I would not know where to go get tapes before Amazon, before you could just order whatever the fuck. Where would you go to get little tapes?
Best Buy. Is that more outlandish, or the fact that he's able to swallow one thanks to the fucking candle wax in the 3rd movie?
Well, I mean, he did cover it in a smooth substance. I'm sure he had some water. Determination. I mean, you get that fucker down. I believe that.
Okay.
Shawnee Smith returns as Amanda, Jigsaw survivor turned Jigsaw apprentice. Smith would play Amanda in 4 of the Saw films and has also appeared in such films as The Blob, Leaving Las Vegas, Armageddon, and The Grudge 3. And
Blob is why she's in this movie. The Blob's why she's even in the Saw franchise.
Yeah, because they were fans, right? James Wan was a fan.
Yeah, he had a huge crush on her. that was the driving force.
A little creepy, but worked out. I think she's great. I love the character of how Amanda grows, the first apprentice that we get to see, and just know her evolution in the franchise and seeing what she did and how Jigsaw knew what she did the whole time. There's layers. It gets complicated, but you see this franchise enough, you start to figure it out.
Yeah. She of all the, as the series went on, they introduced the other apprentices. She is still the best one. And it's not even just because she was the first one we're introduced to. I just think she's best because, admittedly, uh, spoilers really for the whole series at this point. Uh, Hoffman probably wasn't the most interesting of the apprentice to me. But yeah, she did really good and made the character very interesting. Because if you watch the one she stars in, especially the first three, she brings something different to each movie. You know, she's not the same in Saw One like she is in Saw Two, like she is in Saw Three. It's different every time.
I understand. I disagree with you about Hoffman. I think for me, he's my favorite apprentice because he's so evil, like just pure evil. Like they all have their flaws. You know, Amanda was making unwinnable games. Hoffman enjoyed it too much. And I love this idea of like a decorated cop who becomes a part of this giant complex web of evil. And the reasoning behind it made sense. You know, his sister was murdered. I think they could have done a better job kind of making him a little bit more relatable. But overall, I mean, the fact that he still, he was kind of the driving force behind the later movies.
Yeah, I still like him. Like I still like him. It's better than what they did with like Saw the final chapter when Carrie Oles pops back up and he's like, "I've been the true apprentice all along." And I'm like, "What?" No, I still like him. I prefer Shawnee Smith personally.
What are your thoughts on what's his name? Logan, I think, from the Jigsaw, the secret apprentice.
I I don't even know because it looks like Spiral is not even going to follow anything set up in that. It seemed like a cool thing to go with on one end, but at the same time, like I remember seeing it for the first time and going, he has another secret. I wasn't fully on board. I liked it up until like that point, and I was like, okay, maybe we're going a little bit too far with these secret apprentices.
Just like none of them knew about each other. Like there was no like group meeting or anything. Like nobody had a, like a game plan here. Everyone was just kind of going rogue.
It's just no round table with like the Justice League table, like Jigsaw in the head of it and all his apprentices.
It should have been, yeah, you've got this much murder. You need a game plan. You need to know where everybody is, what they're up to. Everyone's got their part in this. But no, it turns out like Jigsaw did not prep for that, despite the fact that he 100% knew he was dying. He prepped the hell out of Hoffman and Amanda, but I feel like Dr. Gordon just got a vague, like, keep an eye on him. And then Logan, whatever, was just like, you just hang back. I'll need you in 10 years.
When they try to bring this franchise back, I'll need you. And then when it inevitably fails and they have to go back to the drawing board,
I'm going to need you to stockpile a lot of my blood, hold on to it for 10 plus years, and then start a new game eventually. And I'm sorry, I almost killed you because you swapped some stickers on the x-rays. That's my bad. I love that he was like, that scene in Jigsaw where he's like, no, I'm sorry. He like runs through into the game, like takes the helmet off. He's like, oh, what have I done? Like, that's the first time ever we see Jigsaw be like, no. And it made me laugh so hard.
Like maybe it's a little much to get pissed at the guy that accidentally switched the sticker around.
I love that he has that realization in the moment. He's like, no, this is too much. And he just walks in there. That's fantastic. And that the guy didn't immediately be like, I'm calling the fucking cops. What the hell's wrong with you? He's like, teach me.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Look, there's admittedly of all the movies, there's a lot of questionable elements to Jigsaw, and weirdly enough, it's one of my more favorite installments they did. But there's a lot of questionable elements that they put into that movie.
Yeah, it's hard to continue a franchise where the main villain is killed and 3 movies in and you're on number 8. Company, being fresh is tough.
It seems like they're figuring it out with Spiral, which from the way it's looking, it's Jigsaw's legacy will be there. He just won't be the villain.
I guarantee you one day they are going to pitch the Jigsaw faked his death idea. It may not make it to the film, but someone's going to pitch that shit.
There is a 10th film in development, so
there you go. There's no way they could pull it off. We saw so much. We saw the autopsy. There's no way. Donnie Wahlberg plays Detective Eric Matthews. Wahlberg would play Matthews again in Saw 3 and Saw 4, and has also appeared in such films as The Sixth Sense, which we covered on this podcast, Dead Silence, Righteous Kill, and he plays Danny Reagan on the CBS show Blue Bloods, which is in its like 15th season or some shit. I don't know. I don't watch procedurals. But good for him getting work.
Yay.
He's not on the block anymore.
You know, I'll say this about Donnie Wahlberg. I actually think that at times he kind of gets shafted by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. And because in his little scene, the Sixth Sense, he's really fucking good. He is really good in that opening scene. And I actually find him to be really, really good in Saw 2. I think he gives a good performance here. And I actually like some of some highlight scenes are any ones between him and Jigsaw, because they play so well off each other.
I agree. Let's agree that Mark and Donnie are both terrible musicians, but decent actors.
Oh yeah, I can agree with that.
And I haven't had a Wahlburger, but I'm not rooting for them either.
That was never a question for me. I always thought that.
I have some family members who used to swear by the New Kids on the Block, so I don't get it. I've heard Good Vibrations. That's worse. That's considerably worse. That family, my God. But I agree with you. Donnie Wahlberg is sensational in The Sixth Sense, and he is really good in Saw. Eric Knudsen plays Daniel Matthews, the detective's teenage son. Knudsen has appeared in such films as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Scream 4, Beastly, and Youth in Revolt. And he's all right.
Yeah, at this point, in the actors you name that are in the trap, I think they're good. I don't have any huge affinity for them. The only one that stood out to me, I'm sure you'll get to her, was because she was on a certain show that I was like, she's in this fucking movie?
Yeah. Here we go. Frankie G plays Eyzaguirre, the psycho drug dealer. Frankie G has also appeared in The Italian Job and 20 episodes of the Starz series Power, and he's not a rapper. I assumed with the name like Frankie G that he was some rapper, but no, he just calls himself Frankie G.
Yeah, it's like that director, Mac G.
Oh my God, that guy bugs the hell out of me just for calling himself McG. After like a certain age, if you're not in the military or we're in prison, you don't get a nickname.
That's fair. I did like his babysitter movies though, so
he did the first Charlie's Angels, right?
Yeah.
I like that movie. Still, no, that's not a free pass. Glenn Plummer plays Jonas, the voice of reason in The House, however briefly. Plummer has also appeared in such films as South Central, City of Lies, and Showgirls 2, Pennies from Heaven. And I'm saying that because I had no fucking clue there was a Showgirls 2. But there is. And he was in it.
Good for him.
Emmanuelle Vaugier plays Addison, the lady who gets stuck in the razor box. Vaugier has done mostly TV over the years, appearing in episodes of shows such as Supernatural, Monk, One Tree Hill, CSI New York, 2.5 Men, and Covert Affairs, just to name a few. She would reprise the role of Addison briefly in Saw 4. And I believe this is who you were talking about.
No, there's another female in the trap.
Oh, this I assumed because of Supernatural. This is who you were talking about. Oh, never mind.
No, actually, and I know she was in Supernatural.
She's the werewolf girl that Sam tries to kill. We were talking about that like yesterday.
Holy shit, that was her.
Yeah, Madison.
Oh, holy shit. Nope, I actually just now learned that.
Yeah, I knew that. I figured you knew that. I didn't know that was. All right.
No, I'm talking about a much bigger hit show back in the day.
She also played the killer in the episode of Monk where he was on jury duty. Like she was trying to get her like drug dealer boyfriend out of custody.
It doesn't ring a bell, not because I didn't watch Monk, but my viewing of Monk was when I went to my grandma's on the weekend because she loved Monk. So I would see the episodes that she watched.
It's pretty geared towards grandparents, but I love that show to death. I've zoomed through that series like 5 or 6 times. It's a comfort series to me.
What I saw, I enjoyed.
Good show. Beverly Mitchell plays Laura, the girl who is always crying and gets no real development. She played Lucy Camden on Seventh Heaven and has done not much else worth talking about. And this is who you mean, right?
Yeah. So I had due to my humongous crush on Jessica Biel, I had seen episodes of Seventh Heaven. Oh. So when I was watching Saw 2, I was like, Beverly Mitchell? I was like, the younger sister? Okay.
You couldn't pay me to watch Seventh Heaven. No way. Ugh.
It's super cheesy and it's not good. But he got me some Jessica Biel. So
there is so many better things I could watch to see Jessica Biel. I could watch Blade Trinity. I could watch Texas Chainsaw. I could watch any episode of SNL that Justin Timberlake hosted.
Stealth next. What was it? Fever Pitch? Where she's it's the bikini scene. Sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole.
I haven't seen Fever Pitch either. Rom-coms. Sports rom-coms. Like, God, could you get a movie less geared towards me? I don't think you could.
She had a bikini scene. For some reason, I stuck throughout the rest of the movie, hoping there'd be a second one.
See, that's why we have YouTube, so we don't have to stick through the rest of the movie. We just look up Fever Pitch bikini scene and we move on. Oh boy. Timothy Byrd plays Abby, the guy who gets roasted alive. He would reprise the role in Saw 3 and Saw 5 and has also appeared in Resident Evil Apocalypse and Cinderella Man, among others. Mostly as like bit parts with 1 or 2 lines.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm racking my brain to try to remember him in Resident Evil Apocalypse, and it's not coming to mind.
He was like Soldier Number 6 or something. Like that was his character name. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
Lyric Bent plays Lieutenant Rigg, establishing a long character arc that would continue into Saw 3 and Saw 4. Bent has also appeared in such films as Four Brothers, Pay the Ghost, and he had recurring roles on the TV shows She's Gotta Have It, Shoot the Messenger, and The Affair, among others. And I love that he is such a he's such a minor throwaway character in this, but they continue to go towards him until he becomes like the main focus of Saw 4. Just this little, another example of planning ahead. Just awesome.
Yeah. And again, they do it. It works. Like if you watch this, this one, you watch what transpires in Saw 3, it makes sense what they do with them in Saw 4. So yeah, it's planned ahead. It makes sense. I get it. So yeah, I love how they do that.
Yeah, he becomes hellbent on finding Matthews to the point where he just doesn't no longer care about his own life. And that makes him prime real estate for a trap.
Yeah. And for, the whole end of Saw 4, don't open the door. No, don't open. Who's behind the door? All the fucking Matthews lines right there.
1 second. There's 1 second left on that clock, and Matthews gets just one of the most brutal deaths in the movies, in my opinion.
He has like the most brutal arc from like this to Saw 3 to Saw 4. I'm like, there is like no love given to him whatsoever. Well,
I love it. He breaks his ankle and like, slips out of there instead of just straight up cutting it off, Dr. Gordon. You could have kept the foot, but
Yeah, but then there's that fight scene, and it still makes me cringe when she fucking hits his broken foot.
Oh, don't remind me.
Movie, yeah, in a movie series filled with the most insanely violent traps, that's what makes me cringe every time because they don't cut away. You just see it and hear it, and you're like, oh.
There's two traps that make me really cringe in the movies. One's in Saw. I think it's 4. It's when the fat like pedophile guy has to gouge his own eyes out.
Yeah, I Saw 4.
And then the other one is the rack in Saw 3. It's I can't watch that.
Oh, yeah, that rack is tough. You know, it's funny. I forgot to mention so when I was talking about my love for this series. So my poor dad, he made because the first Saw was on Showtime, and that's how I saw that one. And then immediately I fell in love with it and went to the video store consistently to keep renting them. And my poor dad, because he didn't realize what he did by being like, hey, let's watch this Saw movie I've been hearing about. And I fell in love with it. Every time I rent it, I would make him watch them with me. And he hates that franchise so much. He hated it, but he was a trooper. And he'd be like, all right, let's watch the new Saw movie. And I would see him at times like squirming, like, oh, why are you making me sit through this? But he was a trooper. He made it through the original run of that series.
My whole family despises this franchise. My mom, who loves horror movies, hates Saw so much. She calls it trash. Like, she thinks that this kind of like this subgenre of horror films are straight up uncomfortable garbage, and she doesn't get it. And
yeah,
I'm like,
there's a lot of, not trying to cast stones here. There's a lot of older horror fans that I've noticed. Not all, but a lot that this whole like torture porn era of like Hostel and Devil's Rejects, the Saw series, they really kind of shit on this era big time. And it used to bug me because again, this era in general, you know, Saw is very important to me. That era is very important to me because I was a teenager. So that's when I was really being able to see these films and really develop my taste for horror. So it's like they like to show on it because it's not that 80s fun or even like the 90s awareness that Scream brought on. It's like this just grim, just no horrors balled, in your face, exploitative, in their views, trash. And I'm like, stop shitting on this. Like, it's just what we got. Okay. If anything, I'm proud that we actually, for a second in mainstream American cinema, got some very violent films released to the public and they were making money.
Yeah, I agree. My house is not very horror. There's only a couple people in my family who really like horror movies, and even then they have a niche. Like, my mom does not like torture porn, does not like slasher films. She's got a soft spot for Scream, but she really prefers like ghosts and aliens, and even then only during the day. Like, she will not watch horror stuff at night, and I'm like, that's the point. And she's like, shut up. So, and then my dad is pretty much like, whatever the hell, he'll go for it. I don't actually know his thoughts on the Saw movies. I should find out. But my cousin Miles recently, discovered them and is now very into the Saw franchise. We're going to see Spiral on Friday, so there is hope yet for my family.
Yeah, I gotta have kids and hope because I'm the only one in my family that like loves this franchise.
Yeah, it's his. I've been pretty alone with this. I think I introduced him to my cousin Rowan back in the day, and he called the twist on every single movie, and it kept pissing me off because he hadn't seen them. But he's like, I bet, like the first movie, he's like, I bet it's that guy, like on the floor there, and I'm like, looking at him like, how could you possibly fucking know that? The second one, he's like, I don't think this is happening at the same time. I'm like, all right, I think he was Googling it to piss me off because that's the only explanation. There's no way he could call that 7 times in a row.
Yeah, no, he was Googling.
Motherfucker.
I was like, I'm sorry, I have yet to meet anyone that's legitimately watched the first Saw for the first time without knowing that twist that isn't surprised when he gets up.
Yeah, I regrettably did know the twist, but I was still, it was rad.
I will say I got lucky and not know the twist when I watched it because I was completely oblivious.
Oh, that must
to
have been
like
crazy.
to the success that was the first Saw. I just knew like the Saw 2 movie was coming out. And yeah, I watched it and I remember just going, that guy was dead. That's not what?
Yeah, it's a great shocker. It's a great twist. It's so simple. Like nobody was paying attention to this guy. Yeah, great. One last cast member I want to bring up, Deena Meyer, who plays Detective Allison Carey, Matthew's former partner. Meyer would reprise the role of Carey in Saw 3 and Saw 4, but she's perhaps best known for her role as Dizzy Flores in Starship Troopers. She's also appeared in Star Trek Nemesis, Piranha 3D, and she portrayed Barbara Gordon on the short-lived series Birds of Prey. And I've got a pretty big crush on Deena Meyer. I think she's awesome. So
is it because of Starship Troopers?
100% because of Starship Troopers. I've been a fan of that movie for pretty much my entire life. And I'm like, how could you ever go with freaking Denise Richards over her? Are you insane, Casper? What the fuck? Anyway.
Because Denise Richards is also pretty hot, just saying.
Yeah, but she's not. To me, that's an easy choice.
Oh, see, that'd be a tough one for me, but.
Well, and, what's her name? Carmen. I love that they're all like white as hell, but have super Hispanic names. And we got to do that on this podcast. She like ditches him for that pretty fly boy dude. Dizzy always had his back. Like that. I have pretty strong feelings about that movie. I'm just now realizing I have feelings about it.
I was going to stand by and just let you have your little moment.
We all have them. This was mine again. Saw 2 has an IMDb score of 6.6, Rotten Tomatoes score of 36%. But then again, Rotten Tomatoes has never been kind to the Saw franchise. They are all certified rotten.
So this franchise is a lot like Friday the 13th in that like critics fucking hate this series so much, but it makes amazing amounts of money at the box office.
I don't know. I think they're pretty on point with the Friday the 13th franchise, but they are pretty wrong about Saw. These are pretty good movies. I said it. Yeah. I think Friday the 13th, I think they make the same movie every time and there's like 2 good ones. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a fan. I'm more of a Freddy guy myself. Actually, no, I'm a Michael guy. Straight up. Yeah. This awkward silence is fun, but do you have anything to add?
Oh. Wow.
This is not a surprise. I've been very vocal about this for years.
I know. It hurts every time still, though, because Jason is my number one. Michael would actually be my number one, but that series is so goddamn inconsistent.
True, but their good movies are leagues better than the good movies from Elm Street or Friday.
The original Halloween, yes. And then the 2018 Halloween, yes.
I would also put Halloween 2, 1981 into the good pile.
That's a good one. I do like H2O, and I like Halloween for the return of Michael Myers a lot. But I like so this is what I like about Friday the 13th. After the first movie, they knew what people wanted, and they gave us exactly that. And I think from like parts 1 through 6 are consistently good films. And yes, I'm saying part 5 is a good film. I like part 5.
For me, it's Corey Feldman like cutting his hair and like just Crispin Glover's weird dances. There's so much inconsistent weird shit in those movies.
That's like one of the best sequels, though.
4? I don't even remember. I can't pick them out of a crowd. I really can't. Like, you show me a screen cap from one of those movies, I can't tell you which one it is.
Oh, I can totally tell you.
There was the psychic girl. There was the boombox. Like, just it got so fucking goofy. And then going to hell with the worm. Like, I like Jason X. I'll give it Jason X. But
I was about to say, let's not talk about Jason Goes to Hell. Let's just move forward to Jason X.
Jason needed to go to space to be interesting. There, I'll say it. Yeah. Dude's got no personality. Like, why do I care?
Neither does Michael.
Michael has loads of personality.
He has a doctor that gives him loads of personality.
Yeah. What does Jason have? He's got a hockey mask and a mom complex. That's great. But what's the motivation here? Like, Michael, we get it. Like, yeah, you want to fuck up this neighborhood? Go ahead. Jason's just like, don't fuck on my lake. Like, just.
Yeah, he's punishing them for what they did that caused them to die. But then not die.
See what I mean?
but then die and come back.
I don't. I have. It's going to take a full episode on one of those Friday the 13th movies for me to really unpack this shit. So we'll just have to wait. Sorry, folks. Saw 2 grossed $147 million on a budget of only $4 million. That's impressive.
There's a reason that this is now dethroned again. Bringing that series up, it dethroned Friday the 13th as the most profitable horror franchise in history.
I mean, yeah, that's pushing. That's 90s superhero movie money. I mean, that's impressive. That's good stuff.
For $4 million, that's God. I can't even. That's a shit ton.
Yeah, that's profits right there. That's dollar signs in the eyes, sequel potential money right there.
That is the executives in their swimming pools, just not even filled with water, just filled with the money from this movie.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Horror movies usually make their money back, but you don't see profits like that usually. That's rare. And it sucks that it's rare. Horror still has a stigma about it. It's got, its niche audience, but it's hard to be mainstream successful. So when you see numbers like this, you get happy.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with there's a lot of higher up studio execs, like when Universal made the comment when that god awful 2017 Mummy was coming out, that they weren't making it horror because horror doesn't make money. You still have for some reason, a studio that got its name off horror. You have these, the big budget studios are promoting this idea of no, we don't want to do horror because it doesn't make money. But then you have these lower budget guys that, to me, I think the fans notice when you got someone like James Wan and Leonardo, these lower budget studios that love what they're doing. They're trying to make a good product and get it out there, no matter what they need to do to get it made, and it shows in the final product. And that's why it is rare, but it's usually these types of films that get it because people can see the love in front of behind the camera.
Yeah. Like I said, passion is everything. If you care about the product, somebody else is going to care about the product. That's why nobody gave a shit about The Mummy 2017, because nobody involved cared. So why would we care?
Yeah, they didn't get the tagline that Saw got, if it's Halloween, then it must be Saw.
If it's mid-June, it must be another Universal lukewarm remake. You know what doesn't make money? Unwanted remakes that nobody gives a shit about. What does make money? Consistently good shit. Well, with that, let's talk about some highlights of Saw 2. So we open pretty strong here with the Venus flytrap trap. And I feel like I could have gotten my way out of that one.
I don't know, because that's my eye. And as someone who's had to make sure my contacts are on or not sometimes, and I've poked my eye to see, it doesn't feel good when you touch your eye without contacts.
Well, I got LASIK specifically because I hated contacts, and the pair of glasses I had at the time would not tighten no matter what. So I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And I shelled out $3,000 for LASIK. Best money I've ever spent. But in the movie, the key's not behind his eye. The wound is under his eye. It's here. It's next to his nose. If it's my life in my hands, I could cut that part open.
Yeah, maybe. I probably could especially if I had the rapid style editing to help me.
That's true. Yeah. You got a good editor, you can spend as much time as you need. But like, if it was, in his eye, he wouldn't be able to see. Like, the key would be here. The scar would be.
Oh yeah,
his fucking
I
eye would
think
be gone.
yeah. Either way, it's tough because you have that little mirror, so you're looking at yourself doing it. It's just that like it's like you have to do that like that 1, 2, 3 and just go. You can't just sit there and be like, ah.
Well, you got to cut open the stitches. Really, honestly, I feel like that would have been fairly easy to get out of because he's already got it stitched up. You just pop those stitches, you pull that key out, you get the fuck out of there.
Do you want to test it? Do you want us to put a key in there and
yes?
see if
next
you make
time
it out?
Next time we meet up, we're gonna test this out. We're gonna try this shit. My God. It is, yeah. I don't know. I feel like he gave up pretty damn quick considering it was his life in his hands.
Yeah, he did. But God, that trap is gnarly when it fucking closes on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you don't even see much. It's just seeing the blood.
The video of this, the surgeon doing the surgery. For years, there was a theory that was Dr. Gordon. And then in Saw 7, it was confirmed that was indeed Dr. Gordon. But I love that even back then, people were like, that's got to be Gordon. Like, he's limping. Gordon has a limp because he has no foot. Like,
yeah, I actually remember that when this one and round 3, people were constantly, like me and a couple of my buddies that were watching these movies would constantly talk about that. It would be like, you think Gordon's actually dead? And then there was like, you don't see his body outside the door in Saw 2 or whatever, like, constant, like, yeah, there was constant well before we knew when this was going to end or Paranormal Activity was coming out and dethroning it, like before any of that shit was happening. Yeah, we were constantly talking about that, like, you guys think it's Gordon? It might be Gordon. They never actually show him dead. He just kind of crawled out of there.
Do you think that was the plan from the beginning?
I want to say yes, but they took so long to get to. I want to say it was. And I think what just took so long to get to could have been Carrie Ewells may not have been too jazzed about coming back.
Well, he had an ongoing lawsuit for years against Lionsgate because of Saw. So like they only settled it like before Saw 7 went into production. That's why he was there.
I actually didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it was something about royalties or some kind of percentage points. I don't remember, but Carrie Ewells did have a lawsuit against the studio for the longest time.
Okay, so that could have been what it was that maybe instead of like the Hoffman character, he was going to be revealed to be the other apprentice.
That would have been neat. But then we never would have gotten.
Cool,
good.
Sorry, it would have been cool, but I do wonder if like how much of the script was rewritten because of that lawsuit, and they couldn't get him back sooner than they wanted.
Probably a substantial amount. I think that they did have a plan. But if it had gone that way, we might not have gotten Hoffman and all that cool backstory regarding him. And I kind of like the idea that Gordon's Jigsaw trusted him so much that he doesn't need to be hands-on. He just handles the big picture stuff. Like he just needs to show up when he needs to show up. I kind of like that in Saw 7 when he just pops up like, you fucked up so bad, I have to be here now.
Yeah, I did. As much as I don't enjoy Saw 7, that was one of the few things I enjoyed.
Yeah. I just love that.
We'll get to that. Like, kind of like
the slow clap at the like survivors meeting where he's just like, we're so proud to be a part of your promotional DVD. I always like that, the seething in his voice there. Just, I have a soft spot for 7.
I just love Carrie Ewells. He's fucking awesome.
He's the man. But 7, it's clearly, it's a 3D movie. It's a gimmick movie. It's the lowest point of the Saw franchise, but it's got some good traps. Like I loved, the key down the woman's throat where he has to pull it up and she won't shut the fuck up. That was great. Pulling yourself up by your pecs with the hooks, like him having to make good on that. I thought I like some elements of 7.
Linkin Park singer cameoing.
That was Grizzly just glued to the fucking chair or the seat. That was rough.
Yeah, like I think a lot of this had to be. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I thought Saw 6 was a fantastic movie.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, I'd put it behind Saw 2 for me. It's a phenomenal movie in the series. and the director was supposed to come back for 7, and some shit went down behind the scenes, and then he left, and they got someone else to do it. I can't remember who the fuck directed Saw 7.
6 rocks because we are watching health insurance people get fucked up, and that is fun. That is, those vultures deserved it, all of it. Yeah, 6 is the most cathartic one for me, where I'm just like, I hope this fucker and all his people burn. Yeah, good times.
I like 6 a lot, but it also came out after 5, which I thought was like a mediocre one at best.
Yeah, me too. 5's kind of weak, although it does have a pretty good ending where Strom gets just crushed to death and Hoffman watches. That was
That was nice. And Julie Benz. I like Julie Benz. So
I don't like Julie Benz, and it's not because of her. It's just the characters she's played in the past have been like real bitches, like Darla in Angel, like just a bad person. Even like Dexter's wife, but by the time 3 and 4 roll around, she's like on his ass for no reason. Like I feel like her characters are just annoying.
it could be, because I thought she was hot since I was a kid. So that just could be allowed. This has to do with it.
Yeah, I've never had a thing for her.
All right. We disagree.
I guess we will, yeah. So when we meet Matthews, he's a pretty shitty cop, pretty shitty father. Just then go. Just God.
I do. Well, like you have that scene, and then when he comes into the office with a cigarette, and he's like going over every bad thing in his life to quickly get you to know who this guy is. Between my wife's fucking divorce papers, then you have the shit you pulled at the fucking crime scene. I'm like, he's not a likable human.
It's a bit of a cliche, cop going like shady cop going through a divorce. Wow, that's uncharted territory. But Donnie Wahlberg, makes it real.
Yeah, and I did want to bring in all these beginning scenes. So like after the scene between him and his son and the well then go scene, and then they go investigate that the trap we saw at the beginning. Did you notice the old jigsaw piece getting taken out? Like, I swear to God, that gets dropped after like this movie.
Well, yeah, because Jigsaw's dead.
Yeah, I always remember thinking like, oh, that's a cool element that never, even when they do flashbacks from Jigsaw's life, it just never gets brought up again. Like, all right.
Well, it's like, in Harry Potter, the whole house points thing completely goes away after Chamber of Secrets. Like certain things, that seem important at first get overshadowed by bigger things. And I think in Saw, it is because Jigsaw's dead, Hoffman's in charge now, and he doesn't give a fuck about that.
Yeah, and then the other apprentice was making unwinnable traps. So yeah,
I bet after the traps, Gordon would go there, cut a puzzle piece out, and then just go home. Like keeping it real. That's what he was doing.
Gordon, doing the Lord's work out there.
Shit, that's great. One thing I thought was a really nice touch was when they catch Jigsaw and Matthews knows that his son's in the game, so he calls him, and Jigsaw redid Daniel's voicemail. I thought that was great.
That whole scene, like when they first get in there, man, and like Tobin Bell commands the screen immediately. Like he lets it be known that like, oh, you think you're going to put me in jail right now? I'm in charge. You're in my ward. You're in my fucking home turf.
Oh yeah. I love how like 10, 15 steps ahead he is in every film. Even when he's dead, he has, years worth of games in the works. It's crazy. Like I was kind of hoping there would be some grand plan, that Jigsaw was like working towards, that like in death was so important. But I guess it's, making sure Sean Patrick Flannery doesn't lie his way through a book deal.
I think there were grand plans, but I know when Paranormal Activity came out around Saw 6, there was a weird box office moment where like Paranormal Activity made a shit ton of money. Saw 6 did not make nearly as much as Saw 5. So they were like, fuck. There was a decline. So that instead of like, I think they were going to try to wrap it up with like a Saw 7 and 8, and then they said, okay, fuck it, we're just going to do a Saw 7 and fuck the eighth movie. But I wonder how much that was Paranormal Activity, and also the fact that not a lot of fans liked Saw 5, so there could have been some box office backlash.
It's a shame. So I think it would have been really cool if, like, in the last movie, Jigsaw's grand plan is revealed and like it was like, kidnap the president, put him through a game or some shit. Like the whole fucking cabinet, it like turned the White House into a trap.
I'd watch it.
I'd watch that so much. That would be great.
Shit, the new one looks like he's going to put the whole damn city under his fucking trap.
If it is Jigsaw, it might be, somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Someone taking over the mantle.
Neat. I'm excited. So I wonder how much of this movie was Bousman's original script, The Desperate. Like, what was that? Like, do you think it was just the people in the house?
I think it was the people in the house. He hasn't, at least what I've seen, hasn't been super like detailed about what was his script and what became Saw 2. I want to say from what he said, it sounds like it's like the people in the house part was what he had written, and that they just retooled that to make it into Saw 2.
Okay. Makes sense. So I wonder, like, what was the plan there? Like, was it people in the house trapped by some person who's locked them in and they have to escape? That's probably why they said it's too Saw-like.
Probably. And then, they retooled it.
Well, it is cool getting to see, these people wake up. They're like, what the fuck? We got Frankie G up in here. And he's just like, I'm going to be an asshole. And the one guy who opens the door gets shot in the head. I thought that was crazy.
Oh, yeah. I've been drunk before, man. I've been through college.
My God.
Okay.
That was, some of the dialogue is terrible. That's one of them.
Yeah. I was like, okay, you and every other person in America that's gone to college.
I love, like you said, Tobin Bell commands the screen. He's, I love his back and forth with Matthews when he tells Matthews that his son is in the game. And he says, like, there's a nerve agent coursing through his veins. He'll bleed out of every orifice. And I love when he just turns and goes, oh, yes, there will be blood. Like, it's so evil.
I just, all the scenes that they're in together are great. Like, they're fantastic because it's a mixture of him trying to make this guy listen, because we know that by the twist at the end why. And Matthew's just not, he's not the cop to want to do this. He just wants to get this over with. He wants to get his son. He wants to put this guy to jail. Like, he's done. And then, like, the little scenes where he taunts him. Like, when, he's telling him, oh, yes, there will be blood. Or, like, when he starts, like, one of my favorite scenes, actually, is when he's destroying his evidence, his work.
Yeah.
Matthews. And the whole time, Jigsaw's just taunting him, like, oh, your son that doesn't even want to talk to you, your wife that's leaving you. And Matthews finally breaks, goes, shut the fuck up. Like, he just breaks for a second, like, the taunts worked.
Yeah. At some point, you realize this whole thing this is Matthews' game. This is his game. And everyone else is just a piece of this game. And all he had to do was shut the fuck up for a second and just listen. That's all he had to do. But he can't do that because that's not in his programming. He's a dirty cop who gets results his way, and he can't operate any other way. Makes sense.
Jigsaw literally tells him in that one scene when he's sitting there looking bored out of his mind, just was like, I told you what you need to do. You just have to listen. And he's like, I'm listening, and you're saying nothing. And it's like, no, you're not listening, you fucking idiot.
He tells him, like, you just keep listening, and we will find your son in a safe and secure state. I love that, in a safe and secure state. You can tell he's having fun with this.
Yeah. Like, so they're great together. They play so well off each other in those scenes.
I thought it was pretty brutal when Abby got roasted. People getting burned alive is always a pretty brutal cringe for me.
Yeah, the idea of like that. Oh, getting burned alive does not sound fun.
No, it does not. It happens quite a lot in the Saw franchise. A lot of people get burned alive.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? To me, you know what strap actually gets me the most in this fucking movie?
What?
The needle pit.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I mean, ugh.
Every time that's another one where every time he gets seen with that fucking asshole Frankie G picks her up and throws her in there. Every time it's like, oh, I cringe because believe it or not, for as much tattoos I have, for a long time I hated needles.
Really?
Yeah, it had a lot to do with like an ingrown toenail, isn't it, in my youth?
Oh,
Yeah. That I hated needles. So like for the longest time, that scene was so fucking tough to watch. And it's actually really cool how they came up with that scene, like how they did it. They ordered real needles, hundreds and hundreds of real needles, because what happened was they meant to get fake ones, but they got fucked up and they sent them hundreds of real ones. So then they turned around and got plastic tips and by hand removed every single one and put the tips on and then threw it into the pit.
Wow. That sucks. In the movie, like, you got to remember Amanda organized this whole thing. She's Jigsaw's inside man. So I doubt she was expecting to be the one hurled into the fucking needle pit.
That was probably the one time where she wasn't acting. It was a genuine scare for Amanda. Like, no.
Yeah. And she's just lying there like, like I'm just shock and pain, needles in every part of her body. Like, you feel it, man.
Dude, when she like has to like, she's freaking out and grabs them. I'm like, yeah, that one, dude. That's the one that of all the traps in this movie, it fucking gets me every time to this day.
I read, I remember watching one of those scary movie countdowns on Bravo that they used to have. And Saw 2 came up, I think, on the second one. And Lee Winnell was talking about how, like, when he was writing these movies, he looked up Spanish Inquisition torture devices. And he said, like, that he's barely even touched what we've actually, like, done to each other in real life. Like, he only scratched the surface for his films, but we have done horrendous, evil shit. Like, there's one thing, I'm so glad the movie never did this. You can see it in Game of Thrones if you really want to see this done to another human being. But it's, I don't remember what it's called, but they put a live rat on your chest and they put a bucket over it and they put fire on the end of the bucket. So the rat gets freaked out and digs his way away from the fire through your fucking chest. It's how they used to torture during the Inquisition. So, yeah, that's hilarious.
Oh,
There's a name for it. I'm gonna see if I can find it because it was like a really weird name that you wouldn't think is attached to something that fucking evil. Torture where rat. What was the rat torture used for? God, I'm not the first fucking person to Google this. My God.
It's with the new movie coming out, apparently people are feeling all torture happy now.
I think it's just called burrowing. Ugh. Oh, the Rat's Dungeon. There we go. No, wait, that's something else with rats. Too much rat torture in history. The fact that I'm having trouble finding this one amongst the many other forms of rat torture, that's fucked up. Oh my God. Anyway, I love when John explains his motivations when he explains the cancer diagnosis and trying to kill himself and surviving. Like when he pulls the fucking metal spike out of his gut, like, and he has that revelation of like, I didn't take life, like I took life for granted, and now I'll make sure no one else ever does.
I feel like he could have gone about it in a different way though. Like, he just pulled a piece of rebar essentially out of his fucking stomach. Like, he's asking people to save someone whose limbs are getting twisted on a rack. Like, Jesus Christ, man. You want to tone it down?
It's also, it's half, experiment, half sadism, because he is killing a lot of people indirectly here. So it's not entirely, for the benefit of mankind. He's having fun here.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember being a kid being like, no, Jigsaw doesn't murder people. And as I go on, I'm like, no, there's a couple of these where it's murder. It's murder.
Well, Matthews makes that distinction, putting a gun to someone's head and forcing them to pull the trigger is still murder.
Oh, yeah, he does say that line. Yeah.
It's great. I like when Matthews finally just loses his shit, just starts beating the fuck out of John, and then like breaks his finger, and you hear John just screams. Like, I hate that. I hate finger breaking. Oh,
I do. And the way he does it, he says that line to him, I would help you, but your boy's too busy busying blood or whatever his line was.
Yeah.
And he just calmly walks to him, grabs his hand, and I'm like, oh God.
My hatred of finger breaking came from the X-Files, actually. It was, I think, season 5 or 6. It was the one where Mulder went undercover in a terrorist organization that was using like a bioweapon to rob banks. You remember that?
Kind of.
And like they thought he was a rat, so they like kidnapped him and like, said like, "Are you a rat?" And he said no, and they just grabbed his finger and pulled, and you saw it all. And I was like, "Oh God!" It just looked so fucking painful. So yeah, not a fan of that.
Yeah, no, that is I like that scene though. I do when he beats, and then he makes him like open his mouth to put the gun in his mouth. And you actually you think for a second, oh shit, he's beating Jigsaw. All it took was beating the shit out of a fucking cancer patient, apparently.
Hero, yay.
Woo! I did actually what the moment before that, before he started beating him up, when he thinks he's being slick to put the walkie-talkie on the floor.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, you should tell your guys in there to open the file cabinet. And it's really like, no, I know you have a fucking walkie-talkie there.
I like when after he puts the gun in his mouth, Jigsaw is just like, game over, like in his own way. And Matthews thinks that means he's won, but no, it means he's lost. And he said, I'll take you to the house. And they get in the car and he just keeps punching him. I love when he tells him it's the last house on the left. Like, cute.
I like that reference. Yeah. Where do I go now? Punching him when you ask the question is not going to help.
It's crazy how much real estate Jigsaw has access to across this city. You ever think about that? Like how many?
I'm glad. I think it was Saw 4, 5 that they start to explain like why he has so much real estate.
Oh yeah, because of the company he started with Jill. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, a failed company, but somehow one that still got him a lot of real estate.
Yeah, like so many warehouses, apartment buildings, like
houses.
Crazy. You'd think that after they know that John Kramer is Jigsaw, they would immediately seize all those assets. And then they wouldn't be able to set up games there.
Unless they get scared. They're like, look, we've been trying to do this, but they keep setting up traps. Let's just nope.
That's a good point. Let's talk about the retractable razor box. That is a hellish trap.
Yeah, that one's so kind of hurts my wrist when I see it. Especially because like she keeps going back down because she's freaking out. I'm like, stop pulling down. It's like, stop doing that.
Well, I love that she puts one in and then can't get the thing. She puts the other one. Like, you don't feel that? You don't feel that maybe putting both arms in there is a way worse idea?
And then if you pay attention to the camera, look at the top of the screen. You can see the key.
I know. I have that in my Filmgazm facts. Yeah, it's just people not thinking, quick, and they're reacting because they're scared. But if they just
scared.
calmly, yeah.
Well, you can argue at that point, it's implied that whatever that shit's in them is pretty like far along in her that she may not be thinking right.
Yeah. And Frankie G walks in there and just lets her die. Like, God, what an
He
asshole.
becomes a psychopath at the end. Just even when he's trying to calmly tell people, I just need to see what's on the back. I'm like, the way you're presenting this makes me not want to turn around and show you my neck because you might stab me.
I love that they end up in the bathroom from the first one and Zepp and Adam's bodies are still there. I love that we get confirmation that Adam never escaped that room.
God, Adam really got the shit in the stick.
Yeah, what a horrendous. He just died of starvation. Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah, Gordon's kind of a dick on that one because Adam really did try to help him. And Gordon's like, fuck you.
Gordon really did just leave him to die. He never did go back for help. Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck.
He never did. After he told him, I'll come back to get help. He never did get him.
That's
what I like about that is like as soon as the lights come on, if you notice, they start immediately playing up the first movie. Like you see the bodies, the lights are on exactly like with the same camera work you see in the first movie. Yeah. They start playing the music a little bit. You hear the Adam and Zepp and all the voices from the first movie as like a nice little reference to the first. Like they really start to play like, hey, we're in the bathroom now. Like this shit's connected to the house that's been taking place in it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool, and that happens a couple times in this franchise, especially with that bathroom. I'm surprised Adam didn't just eat Zepp. I mean,
just become a cannibal.
Well, if you're that, if you have no way out, if you're about to die, A, break your ankle, slip out of there. B, eat Zepp. I don't know.
I wonder how much he'd start to lose his mind. Because I've heard stories about like solitary confinement people when you're left in like a dark space forever, like hours, days, you start to like mentally lose it. So I wonder how much of his mind slipped and there was no thoughts of eating another person.
Adam had the worst death in the entire franchise. He just slipped into madness and died of exposure. That is depressing. Damn.
Honestly, the ending of the Saw one still one of the most haunting to have his screams play with the credits. Like it still gets me when he's just like yelling as the credits are rolling. It's like, God.
Damn, knowing that the key was fucking on him the whole like at the beginning and it went down the drain because Amanda didn't secure it properly. Like fucking yeah, it's great. What do you think of Eyzaguirre just cutting off the back of his own neck? Like, just that's his go-to.
It's an answer. That scene's dude gnarly. I actually really like that scene because of how they do it. Like, he comes in the bathroom and she's immediately like, well, what about the back of your neck? How are you going to read it? And you can tell him he's just like, oh shit, I haven't thought about that. he immediately like he starts doing it and then they start playing the music. And I think that's the main reason I love scenes because they play the music as he's doing it. And the Saw theme song is one of my fucking favorite horror theme songs of like all time.
Yeah, mine too.
Probably my number one personally. And yeah, it's a cool scene. I actually remember when that movie was coming out, and that was one of those things like that everyone was talking about. Because before I had seen it, all the like kids and buddies of mine were like, "Oh, that scene in Saw 2 when he had to cut the back of his neck off to get the code." Like it fucked with people apparently.
Yeah, it's a weird. And then he puts it in his pocket, which is just so twisted. He's just like, I'm gonna save that for later, but first I'm gonna fuck you up. I'm glad that Daniel killed him. Like that was satisfying with the saw. That was satisfying because even you could tell Frankie G was like, I did not expect this. What an unexpected turn of events. And he just clutches his throat.
Not from the kid.
Nope. And that kid's going to be fucked up for life. This whole situation. Plus he murdered somebody. Bye-bye,
I
Matthews.
kept
Your
hoping
family's...
this series would go back to him.
Yeah. Well, it would have been
Yeah,
cool if he was in
they
like the
never do. I
Survivor
kept
group in
hoping.
7 or something.
Yeah, I remember hearing that they were going to do a Survivor Group. So I was like, oh, maybe they'll bring him back and we get a little follow up. No, what if he is the Jigsaw killer and Spiral? He's so fucked up from it.
That would be interesting. I like that. That would be cool. Like if that, all right, let's table that because that sounds awesome. But in the original run, like, would have been cool if later on he showed up as like a Jigsaw obsessed like vigilante who's like trying to track the guy down because of, you know, how he destroyed his family. You know, he finds his dad got his head crushed by ice, and he's like, you know, why me? Like he has this, you know, why me thing, and that would have been kind of cool to see in the later movies.
That would be cool. Holy shit! I know we just said table, but father son, right? In the Spiral trailer would be heavy with Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson. Father son, Saw 2 is a pretty heavy theme. Same director.
Oh shit. Dude, you might be onto something here. He might be the guy. That would be insane. And we know Chris Rock's a fan. We know he's, you know, sticking to the same ongoing story. So it's all canon. Like there's no, you know, I hope so.
I'm seeing it on Saturday. I have duty Friday, so don't you dare text me if I'm right.
Oh, I would never do.
You let me find out on my own.
It's so like if you ever like severely like irreparably pissed me off, I know exactly how to get back at you. Just spoil movies. It's so easy. Thankfully, that won't ever happen. Yeah. I'm seeing it Friday night, so I'll just let you know if it's really good or, you know, my general thoughts. I won't. And I'll, as usual, you know, with big movies, I try to keep my reviews pretty spoiler free. You know, I want people to have a chance to check it out. If it's old, I don't care. I'll say, you know, who dies, who's the killer. I don't give a shit if it's old.
God, I really hope I'm on to something this weekend.
That would be so cool. That would be so cool. Don't look in the cast list because if it says that he's in that movie, he's the killer.
I haven't.
Me neither. So obviously Daniel was in the safe the whole time. Amanda is Jigsaw's secret apprentice, and Matthews was the true target all along. He is locked in the bathroom. Game over.
Yeah. And instead of screaming like a depressed madman, he just keeps yelling, "You fucking bitch! I'll kill you!"
He almost does too. He almost gets it. He gets out of there pretty damn fast by breaking his own ankle, as you do.
Yeah, as what probably would have been a better thing to do than cutting off your own foot.
Yeah, I mean that'll heal. You know, we're not lizards. That ain't coming back. But you know, he wasn't thinking clearly. Shit was dire. Although the reason he did that was to get to the phone, and he could have used his shirt to get the phone like they had been doing the whole movie. But whatever. I think I brought that up when we did the first Saw.
He could have, but apparently that was just out of the question in the moment.
Damn straight. Here's some Filmgazm facts. Number 1, the razor box trap containing the syringe actually has a padlock with a key in it. You can see it out of focus at the top of the screen when Addison puts her hands into the trap. The filmmakers deliberately included this as a way of showing that Jigsaw knew the characters would rush in without checking the trap for a simple solution. Dude, if I see a box with razors in the entry point, I hope I wouldn't immediately stick my hands in there. I hope I'd think like there's got to be another way.
I wanted me to be like, I don't want to stick my hands in there.
Hopefully, I don't think I've done anything, you know, too bad to deserve a spot in one of his games. I mean, I'm not, you know, changing the world, but I'm enjoying it. Number 2, it took approximately 120,000 syringes to complete the needle pit sequence. So they had to replace 120,000 tips with plastic tips. That's insane. God, if I was the prop department, I would have lost my fucking shit. I would have killed somebody.
All because of a fucked up order.
Number 3, in the first week of its DVD release, Saw 2 sold over 3 million units, making it Lionsgate's fastest selling DVD. That's amazing.
Jesus.
People love this movie.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm telling you, when I found out that they were on like DVD, Blu-ray before my parents finally got Netflix, I was at the local video store in Blanco, like that weekend, rushing to grab Saw before anyone else.
By the time I moved there was no local video store.
Yeah, you remember? It was where the grocery store in town was at. You know that little strip.
Yeah.
The very end of it had a Video Shack. That's what it was called.
Was it next to that really tiny Sears?
Yeah.
That's gone, by the way. There's
Yeah.
no more Sears.
The Sears is gone?
Yeah.
I thought that shit would last.
I think the whole company went under, so even the little shitty ones are gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was like the grocery store, Sears, and it was a Video Shack.
That's great. Back in Maryland, when I lived there, I had a Hollywood Video in Hagerstown by the Valley Mall. That was my video store.
Nice.
Those were the days.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I remember like I'd run, grab a Saw movie, hand it to my parents, and immediately go look around the horror section that they had. I was like, look, I picked my movie. I'm good.
That's great. I don't remember the last thing I like rented. I don't know. I know that Harry and the Hendersons and the Monster Squad on VHS were my constant rotations because like I loved them, but I didn't have them, so I wanted to watch them. So whenever I was at the video store, I'd get one of those.
I don't remember. I know eventually at some point my parents switched to Netflix in the mail, and because I remember I finished out Saw that way, like I'd get it from Netflix in the mail. But I can't remember. I think it was either Saw 5 or 6 that happened. I don't remember which sequel it was.
Yeah, I got all of them through Netflix in the mail. And then I bought them individually on DVD. And then I bought the Blu-ray collection with an Amazon gift card I got for something.
So. Okay, nice. Yeah, I got them all on Blu-ray. I thought about picking up the 4K that they did of the first movie. I've been on and off, but if I want to pick that up.
Nah, wait till you can get a 4K set.
Ooh, even better.
Yeah, that's why I haven't bought the Chucky movies yet, because I'm looking for a set.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Number 4, Henry Rollins was originally cast to play Eyzaguirre. Due to scheduling conflicts, he was replaced with Frankie G, who's very much a diet Henry Rollins. I can totally see that.
That would have been so awesome to see Henry Rollins, especially after seeing him in Wrong Turn 2. Oh my God, yes.
And number 5, a few of the traps actually worked. The Venus flytrap could actually slam shut. Turning the key would cause the gun to fire, and the blades in the razor box trap could cut someone if they were metal. So they actually did build some of this shit. Some of these traps were real. That's awesome.
God damn.
I give Saw 2 an 8. It's a solid sequel, just as good as the first one, and explores the backstory of Jigsaw while also setting up future plot threads, which is exactly what a sequel should do.
Yeah, agreed. I give it an 8. It builds off the foundation of the first movie. It gives us a bigger sequel, a gorier sequel, more traps, everything a sequel should do, while laying a foundation for plot threads to get picked up in later movies. And yeah, I love it. I love it to death. It's one of my favorite sequels. My favorite sequel, actually, in this entire franchise. And also because of the song they pick at the end of the credits, the Mudvayne song called Forget to Remember. I was a big Mudvayne fan, and they're finally back together after 11 years.
Woo! Awesome. That is all for this week, folks. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week is another timely film. Next Friday, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead releases on Netflix. So we thought it would be fun to revisit Snyder's first zombie movie, the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead. There's no more room in hell, and the dead are walking the earth. leading a small group of survivors to take refuge in a shopping mall. Can they learn to coexist, or will bickering and fear tear them apart in one of the few horror remakes that's actually pretty decent? Find out next week when we tackle Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Don't miss Spiral on Monday's sneak preview, as well as our Lord of the Rings trilogy extravaganza on Oscar Sunday. There will not be an episode of The Giggle Guys this Friday. The boys are taking a week off for personal reasons, but they'll be back the following Friday to make you laugh. Until then, if you're ever trapped in one of Jigsaw's games, remember, all you got to do is play by the rules. Can't wait until we do Saw 3 and keep watching movies.